constructor. The first of which was in 1984. McLaren then went on a very successful run of wins here at Monaco, up to and including 1993, missing out on only 1987.
Hello and welcome to the Cinque F1 Esports Championship. Today you join us for round 2 here at Monaco. Last race was at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, and it was a very interesting race to say the least. Changing weather conditions and drivers maybe not quite used to the mechanics of the game yet. Saw plenty of lockups, plenty of wheel banging and plenty of spin outs. Of course, the weather on top of all that made it even more difficult as drivers had to come in to swap for tyres and similar issues. Now qualifying will be getting straight underway. 18 minutes, apologies, 17 minutes now left in qualifying, and then half race length, which will be about 39 laps here at Monaco Monte Carlo, as our first drivers hit the track to do their quali laps. All but Pagadala have exited the pit lane. We'll be seeing some action very soon, and looks like Blitz 3000, let's call him Blitz, has already he's left. I'm not sure whether he was disqualified, whether he just crashed out. I've got no idea, but he's definitely not doing qualifying anymore. Currently following Sean. See just how tight those streets are. I think this race is going to be incredibly tricky. And I'm not sure how this will go for our drivers. Caution in Sector 3. So let's go through our drivers. We've currently been following Sean, who was in Red Bull Ring. He was racing a P4 for him, ultimately an improvement, but he's already binned it at the chicane. We've also got Aka joining us once again. We do have some new names today. We've got Blue Blitz, who, as you've seen, has already crashed out of the qualifying, either crashed out or just been disqualified. We've got Bilya. We're joined by George, who turned up during the pre-season testing in the, I believe, the leading car, yes. And he was quite on the pace during pre-season testing, but unfortunately he did not make it for the opening round of the championship. So I'm sure he'll be making every effort to score as many points as possible in this opening round for him, but for the championship, the second round. Then we've got Olo Chicken 60 in P6, currently P1, in that darker red and I'm not sure whether that's blue or black. It's a bit tricky with it. Well, both. The black, blue and red F1 car is currently on provisional pole. He's also a new face. And then of course there's Pagadala and Mormons, both from last race as well, both having competed at the Red Bull Ring. But looks like Mormons has also, well, he's not doing qualifying anymore, so not sure again whether that was just due to a crash or something like that, because it is a bit tricky to try and keep track of who's on track where. Sean's coming back out again, Aka's just in pits. Here's Pagadala. Now he was very strong last race, and he's once again just taken provisional pole, as he did at the Red Bull Ring. But I think he's going to have some competition from George, who's also just set 0.6 faster than Pagadala. Fortunately, the conditions seem more favourable than last race, but of course the circuit itself is going to be enough of a challenge for these drivers. as it stands then, George on provisional pole, followed by Pagadala, and then Blue Chicken. Now, if you're wondering what are these names, these are just the usernames, and I'm literally taking it as I'm saying it on your screen as well. So, yeah, if we had the proper drivers' names, I would say it. If it was on screen, it's a bit tricky to do that at the moment, so we'll just stick to calling them by their usernames. We'll call L George F just George, Pagadala, then obviously Hollow Chicken, we'll just call him Chicken, I think. Ilya Bilya, let's call Bilya Kunga, and then Sean, Acker, Blitz, and then Mormons. These are going to be very interesting names to try and remember as we go through. Anyway, Pagadala, once again, back at the top with a 109.935. It's again leading the way, and everyone has gone back into pits except for Sean and Acker, who have yet to set a lap. Let's see if we can go on board with them. Acker seems speedy as he comes through the tunnel now into the Novell chicane, turns 10 and 11. Sean has just crossed the start line to start his flying lap. Sean has a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Kunga, apparently. I'm not sure the grid will have enough space for this driver to move back any further, if I'm going to be honest. But anyway, Acker about to start his first flying lap through turn 1, Sandervoort up the hill through Rivage, then into turns 2 and 3, Massenet, and then turn 4, the right-hander of Casino. Yellow flag out ahead, you can see a lock-up from the driver ahead, turn 5, Marabou now into this next couple of sections. Very tricky, very tight, turn 6 at the Grand Hotel, turn 7, then turn 8. And oi, that is a driver interfering in an outlap. And that is not Bichon that actually got in the way. Oh, and Ackers looks like he's driving fairly under the limit here. He's got a lot more grip towards the end of the corner, and he's not quite sure what to do with it by the looks of it. Taking that curve quite nicely through turns 13 and 14. And now into the final corner, turn 19, Anthony knows, and across the line is that provisional pole. Unfortunately not, however it is good enough for P4, a 112.010. The next driver to kind of look at is going to be Bilya in a really nice golden white livery. Looks like a metallic, I almost want to say satin look on that roll hoop. So Bilya running a 113.296 as he comes through the tunnel into the chicane. Oh, and I'm kind of not sure what to make of that. The amount of issues we've had in qualifying already is concerning, as Bilya hits the wall and is prevented from doing another lap. We have 9 minutes left in qualifying. You can see just how much the loss of that right front wing has done to his, well, obviously his downforce, but his grip levels. I mean, oh, and he locks up and puts it into the wall at turn 19, struggling to get the car back to pits. Meanwhile, Kunga, the 121.4, I believe he was our culprit from earlier. He locks up into turn 5, Marabou, into this tricky tight section of turns 6, 7 and 8. You can just see how much tyre smoke is going up there. So Kunga then needs to improve by more than 8 seconds if he wants to improve on his position. He's currently P6 and P5 is a 113.2. But looking at the pace in general, Bilya looked like he had a little more goodness, and he's taken out another driver. I believe that's Aka. What seem to be sister cars have come together in Sector 1. It seems no one can get a clean lap around Monaco. Now we do have 9 drivers in the lobby, which is fortunate. I thought we might not even get as many. We had a similar number last race, and we had plenty of racing action. I think today should be good. 7 minutes left in qualifying before our 39 lap race. George, as we were on board, just set a new provisional pole time, beating Pagadala by 4 tenths. Currently running a 109.555. Once again, cars getting in the way. Kunga just retiring from the session, probably due to the damage he received at the hands of, I think it was Kunga as well. So George then will have to wait another lap to set a faster time. Pagadala is out on track at the moment, about to start another lap. Here we go, he'll be hoping to improve by more than 4 tenths. Absolutely rocketing into turn 1. Up the hill, sector 1. Fast left-hander, now into the right-hander. Turn 4, past the casino, little touch on the barriers, and he's 4 thousandths off his time. There's still plenty that he can make up, considering that provisional pole is 4 tenths ahead. Just touching those curbs. Coming through the tunnel. Now into the Naval chicane, turns 10 and 11. Then turn 12 coming up next to Buck, a left-hander. That will conclude sector 2. Let's see, has he improved his time at all? Yes, he has, by 1 tenth. He needs to make up 3 tenths in the final sector if he wants to take provisional pole this lap, or he could just set himself up for another attempt next lap. Coming through the final corner, Anthony knows. Is it going to be pole for Pagadala? No, it isn't. By barely 2 tenths. But he's got a little more momentum now. So let's see if he can manage to clinch it in another attempt. He's only got 4 minutes remaining in order to do so. Once again, slightly tapping the wall on the exit of Casino turn 4. Slight lockup from the left front. Sector 2 basically just started, and it concludes at turn 12 to Buck, that fast left-hander before you hit the double chicane. Now into the Novell chicane, turns 10 and 11. Oh, and he's taken off a wheel, and that's Pagadala's qualifying over. Pagadala with a 109.7, pushing the limits, and on turns 10 and 11 has hit the wall. That means Pagadala is out of the qualifying session. Meanwhile,
Race control collision with car 99. Noted.
so collisions between the drivers. That's going to be, 1 second, we'll just put up something. That's going to be Kunga.
Under investigation.
Cool. So Kunga under investigation, car 99. He has retired from the session, but he had a couple incidents with some drivers during qualifying, of course, interfering at all with a driver's laps during qualifying is frowned upon, let alone colliding with them. So that is, I'm sure the stewards will be looking into that with a fairly judgmental eye. Meanwhile, Chicken coming round, potentially improving on his lap time. Actually, Hollow Chicken just takes pole. 109.470, beating George by less than a tenth. Chicken was running in P3 for a of nowhere to take provisional pole. Now, how will George respond? He's currently on an out lap, so he's just seen that and he's decided time to head back out. Meanwhile, the next driver on the standings board is Aka with a 1:11.8. Aka has improved on his sector 1 time by about 4 tenths, but he has a lot to catch up when it comes to timing, because he hasn't taken that right-hander of turn 7 quite as wide as the other drivers up in the top row positions. Does he manage to improve though? That's the question. Oh, and a tap to the barriers on the exit of the Novell chicane. Turn 11 absolutely flying through to back. He's improved by 6 tenths. He still has a lot to improve. Coming through the final sector, this seems quick. Lock up on the right hand side of the car. Coming through Anthony Nose. Aka coming across the line. And he improves his time by half a second, but unfortunately is not fast enough to fight for the podium positions yet. Meanwhile, George is now coming through the final section of the racetrack to respond to Chicken's 109.4. There it is. George with a 109.2, essentially. Another 2 tenths faster than Chicken. Now, how will Chicken respond? He's coming through this final section. He's improved by 4 tenths on his second sector. This is intense. Drivers fighting for pole position now. The last 30 seconds of qualifying coming across the line. It's got to be close, and Chicken clinches it by just under. No, sorry, that's going to be just over a tenth again. You can hear he's slightly backed off now, but George is still going full chat. He wants to set yet another lap time because he knows he's just been ousted.
Race control, 5-second penalty on car 99, collision with car 9.
And race control once again taking note. And here's George, but he cannot improve. Slower by a tenth, and that's the end of qualifying for George. So unless Aka or Sean can pull out an absolutely amazing lap time, it seems as though Chicken will hold on to pole position. The rookie, essentially, or the driver who did not compete last race, showing George how it's done. But to be fair, George didn't race last race either, so Pagadala in P3 is going to be essentially trying to hold on to, maybe he wants another win, obviously. Everyone wants the race win. At the end of the day, he's the only one that has taken race wins so far, so he'll definitely be looking to be the only one. There's Aka also potentially improving on his time, but still P4. That then is the end of qualifying, and what a battle it was for provisional pole towards the end. George and Chicken trading blows, but ultimately Chicken coming out on top with a 109.0. Some penalties being applied to Aka and Sean, some grid place penalties for colliding with cars during their out laps and their flying laps. Now unfortunately Blitz and Mormons both retired from the session as well, so they will be starting from the back of the grid. But join us once more for the race start in just a few moments. And after that intense qualifying session, I'm looking forward to the race. That rivalry between George and Chicken getting underway straight away during qualifying, so it'll be interesting to see how they perform off the line. Of course, Monaco, apologies, almost said Monaco, I mean, however you want to pronounce it. But anyway, Monaco is definitely not the track that you think of when it comes to side-by-side racing, overtaking, and similar things. It's more about strategy and qualifying pace. And of course, we saw quite an interesting qualifying session with Blitz and Mormons both retiring. And of course, the last couple minutes of qualifying, seeing a battle between George and Chicken. We wait for the drivers to get ready, and the 5 lights come on. And the green flag waves in Monte Carlo as the tyre smoke ascends into the air, and it's Chicken with a dominant lead, but there's already some drivers hitting the wall on the exit of turn 1. Pagadala managed to get past George already. We're seeing some battles. Oh my goodness, and that's Kunga in the background, slow and across the track. But this then is Pagadala and George. Oh my goodness, and that's Pagadala into the wall and out of the race. Straight off the bat, we saw Kunga across the line, across the track, and now it's the safety car that comes out straight away. We haven't even finished a lap of racing at Monaco yet, and we've already seen one driver hit the wall in Sector 1 and another hit the wall at the start of Sector 2. Literally, it was just at the start of Sector 2, Turn 5, Mirabeau. And Pagadala, our last race winner, will not have a chance at another podium or another race win. So the grid will form up now under the safety car. Oh my goodness! What has happened there? Billy has been taken out by Mormons, I think. Oh my goodness, chaos under the safety car, and Mormons can't even keep the car going on the track. Oh my goodness, this race has erupted into chaos. Mormons into the pit, George into the pit, and that's 2 retirements within the first lap. Wow. So Chicken holds on to his P1. Oh, it looks like Blitz just got hit with a penalty for speeding in the pit lane as well. On entry, he's just coming to the pit lane for some changes. Or probably just for fixes to the wing. But under the safety car then, all the cars have managed to form up. And it's Chicken, then Akka, then Sean, then George, then Kunga, then Mormons, and then Blue Blitz. Wow, what a start to the race here at Monte Carlo. Controversy already within the first lap. So Chicken managed to hold on to his lead. There was no drama there. George and Pagadala swapped positions pretty much straight from the start line. Pagadala got ahead, and then under pressure into turn 5, he just locked up and slid straight into the wall. Unfortunately, unlike George Russell on a wet Monaco race, he did not manage to get into the slip road. He just hit the wall straight head on. And then George pitted for probably a new front wing, which means that Akka has been promoted a position or 2, as well as Sean. And actually I can pull up the difference there. So position change, Akka is up in 6 positions, Sean is up 6 positions. They're the ultimate winners, and then the ultimate loser in this situation is George, who's lost 2 positions. Actually, Kunga's just come into the pits. He's lost 2 positions. So yeah, things have gone all weird. You can see the top 3 drivers haven't pitted yet. It's the bottom 3, and a variety of tyre choices as well. racing sometimes, isn't it? But anyway, safety car's still out. Mormon's currently on board with him. He's not too far ahead of the drivers behind. Cannot see them on the main straight yet. Darkness continues to fall at Monte Carlo. 4 laps into the race, and we have already got a safety car. You can see Kunga closing that gap now. 9 seconds. Blue Blitz 10 seconds behind. It looks like Acker and Sean have got almost no time between them. They're trying to stay as close together. Well, sorry, Sean's trying to stay as close to the back of Acker as possible for the restart. But it does look like Kunga has managed to form up to the back of that train. So now it's Blitz coming into the pits and back out again. So he's just served his penalty, I think. Which, to be fair, is not a bad idea. He still needs to catch up to the back of the safety car. If he can keep it out the wall, yeah, unlike he just did, then it would have worked. But he's got some damage to his car, and now the safety car comes in as well. So let's have a look at this restart then. Sean in P3, Acker and Chicken ahead, George just behind, waiting to take another podium position. We've seen the chaos that can erupt. Of course, Blitz is pretty much a whole minute behind. There's someone ducking into the pits. Is that George once again hitting the pits? As the racing gets underway yet again, the green flag waves, and Chicken has managed to already pull out a small lead. He's 3/10 ahead of Acker. Acker chasing for race position, racing for the race lead. Sector 3 has already got a warning, but George then dropping all the way down to P6. He was P2 at the start of the race. Which is really unfortunate. Oh, and there's a massive lockup from Chicken coming into turns 10 and 11 Novell chicane. Kunga, meanwhile, down in P5. He's only 5/10 off of Mormons now. This should be an interesting battle, having a look down the inside into turn 10 and 11. Oh my goodness, and both of them have managed to hit the wall on the exit. He's got more speed, he's getting hung up on Mormons now. Down the inside, and he's just made it. And there is no front wing on Mormons' car as he ducks into the pits. The question is, does Kunga still have a front wing? Yes, he does most of it. There's maybe a little winglet missing in the left front, right where he's hit it once again. So Kunga has got damage to his car as well. Of course, Blitz down in P7. He's still got to make up 52 seconds to the drivers ahead, but Mormons, of course, is in the pit, just coming out of it. And Kunga still needs to pit, so George might actually find himself in P4 at the end of this. He's only 2 seconds off Kunga ahead. Here's George closing that gap on Kunga for P4. He gets that slipstream. Look at the acceleration he's got on that black, red and blue car ahead. Oh my goodness, and he tries forcing his way through, but that has not gone well at all. And I think he's just put that into the wall, potentially out of spite, and Kunga continues still, but that is George out of the race as well. Our previous race, well, sorry, George wasn't in the previous race, but he has been at the top in terms of performance all weekend long, as well as that pre-season testing. He seemed very strong, and now he's out as well. So then that leaves us with Hollow Chicken, Acker, Not Michon, Kunga, Mormons and Blue Blitz as Kunga comes into the pits now. So Chicken is just plowing on. He's got no idea what's going on behind him. There is a virtual safety car employed now, and that's going to be for George, who parked his car on the Novell chicane, turns 10 and 11. And that was a very sketchy overtake attempt around the outside, and you can just see the tyre marks there. Oh my goodness, and Kunga, a 10-second penalty crossing the pit lane exit line. Kunga cannot stay away from the stewards. He went once and he can't stop going back. It was just too good of an experience. It must be really friendly, I think. But anyway, Kunga 46 seconds behind Sean, and Chicken now comes into the pits as Acker comes past, and I think normal race pace has resumed. Chicken in the pits, Acker takes the race lead. So then it's Acker, Sean, then Chicken. Kunga probably won't close that gap before he gets before Chicken leaves the pits. There's another yellow somewhere out of track, and that is going to be Mormon's part across turn 5. Mormon's struggling. He's got to make up 9 seconds to blitz ahead. He seems to be struggling for grip. Oh, and that's Mormon's out of the race as well. Monte Carlo claims yet another victim. 4 drivers out by the time we hit lap 7. We're not even a fifth, not even 20% through the race. We've already seen half the grid destroyed by the walls here at Monaco. So Chicken, 7 seconds behind Sean. We've seen him push the limits on track and push the limits of the car. So I think he's going to make up that gap to Sean. He's going to make up that 6 seconds fairly quickly. He's already dropped a second in that last sector alone. He continues to push 5.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Acker keeps a consistent gap to Sean at around 7 seconds as well. That'll just fluctuate. There's Cooper ahead, letting him through. Good awareness from the driver behind. And the gaps will start growing, except for Chicken, who's trying to close that gap. Currently 4.6 seconds. That thing is closing rapidly. Acker, meanwhile, gapping Sean slightly. 9 seconds. Well, now the way my head works is I'm used to doing GT3 stuff. We've got all sorts of different classes, for example, Pro, Pro-Am, and then Am. And in my mind, it's a similar thing here in terms of who the drivers are. So in my mind, Kunga and Blitz, kind of, unfortunately, they're at the back, most likely just due to those wing problems, the pit stuff. And in terms of overall pace, Hollow Chicken's just in a completely different class. He's already made up that 7-second gap in 2 laps. He's now 3 seconds behind Sean. And then Sean and Acker are on a pretty level playing field. Acker slightly opening that gap. But it's Chicken now 2 seconds behind Sean. I think that is Sean just ahead. In terms of overtaking opportunities, we've seen how wrong it can go already. So I'm wondering where Chicken is going to choose his moment, whether he'll pick it through the tunnel, maybe hang it wide so he can get the inside line into the chicane, but then he's at risk of that protruding barrier at turn 10. Or will he just try and get within that 1 second for the DRS? And he will be within that 1 second by the time they hit the DRS detection zone, which is around here, turn 17, this left-hander. So he's Has a look down the inside, but it's not there yet. It's not close enough. And they are fighting now for P2. Chicken fighting for his first podium. So is Sean. Sean finished P4 at the Red Bull Ring. Is this going to be Chicken's chances? Going down the inside into turn 5. That's very ambitious. Down into Mirabeau. But he gets the move done. Beautiful move by Chicken. He sets it up lovely. You can see it coming from a mile away. And not Michon could not do anything about it despite his best efforts. That's Chicken up into P2. So 3 laps is all it took for Chicken to close a 7-second gap. Meanwhile, Aka, while that's been developing, has pulled up a 14-second gap now on P2. Aka will be looking for yet another podium and potentially his first race win of the season. 2 races, 2 podiums. In his case, if all goes well, it's going to be 2 races, 1 win. The same for Sean, 2 races, 2 podiums. We are down to 5 cars now. And the gaps are astronomical down in P4 and P5. Kunga 1 minute and 10 seconds behind Sean. And then Blitz 1 minute 22 seconds behind Kunga. And Sean, of course, is being gapped by Chicken every corner. He's down 5 seconds now already, but we are currently following Blitz. And he does seem to have a full front wing. Oh, and as I say that, he slips and his rear has an impact with the wall on the exit of Tabac, turn 12. Now coming through turns 15 and 16, then 17. Maybe pressure loss on the right rear tyre. It seemed like a little bang. His whole rear end seems a little loose. But he has managed to actually close a 3-second gap to Kunga. So we could potentially see another battle there as he comes sliding through turn 1. A little bit of a lock-up on the right front. My question is, that is Chicken coming up on Kunga now. Woo! And Kunga into the wall. If it weren't for the ghosting system, that would be Chicken's race over already. So Kunga once again just absolutely sending it around the track of Monte Carlo, and looks like there's a caution somewhere on circuit. That's most likely just Kunga's incident. Well, that's Charles Leclerc calls it a little incident. Woo! And cutting the curb, trying those limits, testing those limits as much as he can. Chicken is pushing. He's managed to close that 14-second gap. He is faster, it seems, in general, than Aka. He's down to 12.9 seconds now, but that is going to be slightly harder than it was with Sean. He closed a 7-second gap, about 3 laps. This seems to be a 0.3 second close in about 1 lap. And we just saw Chicken taking fastest lap as well, a 1:12.9. So of course that is going to be slightly slower than the qualifying lap. So of course, first of all, it's a race setup, it's not a qualifying setup. So this is going to be slightly less aggressive on stuff like the tyres, tyre pressures, maybe a bit of toe, stuff like that. And also in terms of fuel, he'll be running a heavier fuel load. There's also going to be all the DRS stuff. Won't have DRS every lap. Of course, does have an influence on the straight line speed, the pit straight. But of course there's also the changing temperatures as darkness continues to fall. And that's a stationary blitz on turn 3, Massanet. That long left-hander just before Casino, and he's making a 50-point turn. I hope, yes, the ghosting system is active. Otherwise he would have just taken out one of the race leaders. Now that is one thing I am slightly kind of upset about, is we don't get to see all the shrapnel that would go with a race with no ghosting. Especially, oh my goodness, and he just gets underway and Blitz takes down his front wing. Struggling to get going is Blitz. He's very familiar with this position, facing oncoming traffic. And he's just parked it right in the centre. Oh, and I'm not sure, is that ghosting system working? Yes, but that is going to be a stationary car. That's Sean just parked stationary waiting for this driver. And Kunga just goes straight through with a ghosting system. He's aware of it. Sean isn't. So Kunga's potentially making ground on Sean. But yeah, Blitz back underway. And oh my goodness, this race just keeps getting more and more chaotic. Now it's Kunga 1 minute 40 behind Sean. Sean 50 seconds behind Chicken, and then Blitz. I'm sure that's got to be a bigger gap than 1 minute 24 seconds to Kunga ahead in P4. There's Kunga just coming out of turn 12 now to back into first chicane, turns 13 and 14, Virage Louis Chiron, and then turns 15 and 16. The final sector. Looking at the gap between Chicken and Aka, that has slightly grown actually from what it was when we left him. It was about 12.6 seconds, 12 and a half, but now that's gone up to about 14.3, so I'm not wondering whether Chicken took some damage at some point during the couple minutes we were following someone else, whether he's just dropped off the pace, trying to conserve the tyres, because he did come into the pits, hasn't he? He's already come into the pit. Aka, I'm not sure Aka has. So this could be Chicken just waiting for that opportunity. Pit window opens now, lap 17 to 25. This is going to be when the drivers hit the pits for the tyres. Oh, apologies, yeah, so I don't think Chicken went in for a tyre swap, did he? No, he just went for a wing change. Even though he seemed to have had the cleanest race so far. There's a yellow somewhere on track, sector 1. Who is that? I'm not sure, probably Blitz. But Kunga continues his little rampage, trying to keep up with Aka, but he is falling behind 14.6 seconds now. You can see all the tyre smoke coming down there for a good 20 metres at the end of the braking zone into turns 10 and 11. That chicane of Novell. And only 5 drivers in the lobby now. Now race control have been very quiet over the last couple of minutes. Last race they were in our ears almost every 5 to 10 minutes. Though to be fair, probably around only 15 minutes has elapsed since our last incident. Lap 18 of 39 now, almost halfway there. And Chicken continues his attempt to keep up with Aka, but Aka seems to have gotten into a good rhythm now. There's a caution in sector 2, and that's Kunga parked on the exit of turn 7. Now on to Portier, turn 8 now down the tunnel, so Kunga also continuing to struggle through the racetrack. You can see just the difference in pace between Kunga and the drivers up at the top. Kunga's basically, I think he's probably just playing the patient game, or he's just not used to driving at Monaco. To be fair, when I tried Monaco for the first time, I was not too confident. There's Sean coming into the pits now, you can see P3. Now, Kunga's already been lapped by Sean, but of course Sean stopped when Blitz had spun out, so is this potentially Kunga? No, it is not, because he's also coming into the pits. 10-second time penalty for the collision. Pit stop done. Is it quick? Sean has just left the session. What is going on? Please do not tell me that is true, because I can still see his car driving, unless that's the AI that has taken over. We'll have to observe. And oh my goodness, Kunga cannot get enough of those stewards. He has gone back yet again with another 10-second penalty, again for crossing the pit exit line. Judging by the racing style of Sean, I believe it is an AI that has taken over. One great indicator to know when computers are driving rather than actual people is the absence of tyre smoke and lockups, especially in F124 as we see so far.
Control red flag session restart. All drivers to pit lane.
And that's race control finally stepping in, saying he's seen too much damage, too many drivers out of the race, too much chaos, time to restart. I wonder, is it going to be another full 39 laps? Or will they keep it to a super short, as in a 5-lap shootout? We're already 21 laps into the race. It is a very late time to try and, we've been through a lot already, times-wise. So it'll be interesting to see how they start. It's going to be a race restart then, ladies and gents, at Monte Carlo. And in all honesty, it's taken race control a while, but I'm glad it is happening. Albeit a little late. We've only 18 laps left in the race. We're just over halfway through. By what's going on right now, but I'm sure we'll get news on what's happening soon from race control. There we go. Is this maybe a red flag kicking in? Yes, I believe it Kunga in P4 still going slowly, but he's still going. Oh my goodness. And this has been chaos galore.
Race control, red flag. All drivers back to the pit lane and repeat across the filter. Section restart.
Session restart once again. Race control trying to get all the drivers back to the pit lane so we can have another restart. Kunga, just around the corner from the pit lane, decides, you know what, turn 18's a nice spot to park. Just leave it there. La Rascasse. And Kunga disqualified, and we'll be back underway for the race in just a moment, ladies and gents, as the session gets restarted.
Bonus points will be awarded to drivers who are still in the session after the accidents. Race restart. Are you in?
Yep.
What you said again?
We are in.
Good. Race restart now.
Race restarting then. And let's hope we do not have as many collisions as last, in the last hour, I think, or so of racing. It's getting a bit long, unfortunately, but it is part of racing. Unfortunately, we just sometimes have days like this. Unfortunately, they're not very often, but they do happen. And it looks to be a very cloudy day at Monaco. Race restart happened sometime the next day, apparently. Now I'm just a commentator. I'm just along for the ride. So I mean I do get to eavesdrop on the Discord group chat, but otherwise I'm just as surprised as you guys at whatever's happening now. So this is the race restart. And apologies it has taken this long, but the lights come on now for the second time. And the green flag waves at Monte Carlo once again. Tyre smoke fills the air once again. And I do hope we all make it through turn 1. There's Bilya already hitting the wall on the exit of turn 1. Everyone else making it through the first section fairly alright. There's already contact between Kunga and Blue Blitz. They've all just managed to keep it together on the, through the first section of the racetrack. You can see all the cars bunching up. Oh, there's a collision already there. Bilya and Pagadala slipping through on a sideways Aka, I believe. That's Kunga having a little battle with, I think it's Blue Blitz. So Blitz trying to make a move on Kunga at some point into the chicane. They're still fine. A little further up though, this is Pagadala and Aka, the two podium finishes last race, and Pagadala with an opportunistic run down the inside of Aka, and he's managed to make that move stick really quite well, but he's not gotten clear of him yet as they come through the final corners now, but he has managed to get a small gap ahead. Further up though is Chicken and George, once again their big rivalry now finally being displayed fairly on track. And by the way, it is a 27 lap race, so yes, it will be another 20 minutes or so. I'm not sure how long. Whoa! And that's Chicken with a massive slide to the side, and he's damaged a little bit of his front wing. You can see how much he's locking up the rears. Now it's George alongside, coming into turn 5, Mirabeau. He's pushed to the outside. Now they come through the tunnel. He'll have that slipstream down into turn 10 and 11, the Novell chicane. Does he make use of it though? We saw George's little attempt on Kunga earlier today, and it did not go well. And he has managed to keep it clean. He hasn't decided to go for a huge dash down the inside. And we are finally seeing some good racing going on. This is George trying to make ground on Chicken. He's only 0.3 seconds. So the moment that DRS drops, he's going to be waiting for it. Whether he'll be able to make use of that though on these narrow streets is debatable. And there we go, we can hear that little beep of DRS. So it is active now, but he's not going to be using it here. The DRS only happens on the main pit straight. So these two are going to be battling it out. George just trying to keep it within a second of Chicken ahead, so that when he gets to that DRS detection zone, which is turn 17, just before the Ruscus, he'll have a little bit of extra speed, and a little bit of extra top end speed to carry him through into turn 1. But Chicken seems to be feeling the pressure. He's been locking up almost every corner that Pagadala just behind? Yes, it is. Half a second behind is Pagadala on George. So he's going to get involved now as well. Both of them will have DRS. This is going to be very interesting coming into the final corner. That's Pagadala trying to squeeze and take hold of an opportunity that wasn't really there. And he's parked now across the track at turn 18, Laris Gas. And that has worked out horribly. He just couldn't wait any longer. And that was the result of his actions. Pagadala now down in P4. He's fortunately only lost one position. Blitz is 17 seconds behind, so it's not likely he'll lose many more positions. 0.3 seconds is George on Chicken now. Very close to the back of that dark car, and George is just keeping that pressure on. He's just getting closer and closer, and he's just staying there. You know, once he gets close enough, he just tries to stay there, puts that pressure on. Looks like Sean and Mormons have just swapped positions down for P7 and P8, but we follow the battle for the race lead. Huge lockup once again from Chicken. And every time these drivers lock up those tyres, they scrub a little bit more grip out of that tyre, a little more temperature into that tyre. And of course, if they lock up every single corner, it just gets more and more sliding, and we can see that happening with Chicken just ahead. George, as far as I know, he's kept it somewhat good in terms of tyre temps and locking up. Or turn 1 getting a bit squirrely under braking, but Aka now also 0.4 seconds behind. The gaps close up at the front as Sean down in P7 is having a look at P6. Kunga is only 0.3 seconds off there as well, but now it's the top 3 that are all within 0.6 seconds of each other. And out into the tunnel. This is on board with George. He's half a second, Aka 0.7 seconds, and we've seen how impatient Pagadala can be. I wonder whether Aka is a similar story. He's dropped back slightly, so George isn't... No, sorry, that was Pagadala in the background. Sorry, I mistook him for another driver. And you can see all the tyre smoke going up from Chicken's tyres. He's still locking up regularly. That's going to hurt him in both the short-term and the long-term race. So he does have pace overall, it seems, on George. However, he is losing lots of tyre grip in doing so. So every lap is just going to be slower and slower and slower in comparison to George, who is keeping his tyres relatively... He's kept the temperatures all right, which means the pressures and the grip level is going to be the same and relatively unscathed compared to those knackered tyres of Chicken will be wearing out sometime soon. As they come out the final corner, Pagadala also closing the gap on Aka, who's dropped back 1.6 seconds from George. Huge lockups from our top 2, but let's go on board with Pagadala now. We saw being very ambitious with an attempt at an overtake on George at turn 18. Did not work out, but he continues to push forward only 0.4 seconds. Oh my goodness, oh dear, that's Chicken parked across the track. George losing both positions, and that's Aka and Pagadala then up into P1 and P2. Lap 7 of 27. Already we're seeing brilliant racing action, but unfortunately all of that has just gone down the drain as George and Chicken drop down 2 positions. So now the battle for the lead is going to be between Pagadala and Aka. Aka, getting a slight tap from Pagadala behind, and we've seen how impatient Pagadala is, an overtake in turn 6. They're still side by side coming through those right-handers, and that is Pagadala up into the race lead. Very aggressive driving from our last race winner, and he has finally made that move stick. But this is Aka then in P2, looking to defend from George, who's half a second behind now. George looking to make up that position. He was P2 before the little crash, so he's looking to retake that position and keep Hollow Chicken behind. You can see the DRS being deployed now, but it's too far back to make use of it. Only keeping his speed up and relatively similar to George behind. So George managed to gap Chicken by about 1.7 seconds. Oh, and that's Bilya parked across the track. 9 seconds. No, sorry, that can't be right. But he is very far back, is the point. And Pagadala has already pulled out a second lead on Aka. George 0.8 seconds and Hollow Chicken 1.6 seconds. Oh my goodness, the race restart has been entertaining. So George, 0.7 seconds off of Aka. That's the closest battle we have at the moment. We saw Aka show some good pace during the first race today, before the restart. And George has just been conserving his tyres while at the same time maintaining his brilliant pace. So in the long run, George might do an undercut and absolutely drive his tyres to mush once he stops, and then get the undercut on Aka. Using all 4 tyres there. It's beautiful racing from George. He's only half a second off of Aka now. Coming into turn 5, now turn 6. That tight left-hander squeezing through there. Kunga now 1 second off of Blitz in P7. Going through the tunnel. It's only 0.3 seconds between George and Aka. There's no move there yet, but he is inching closer. He's just waiting for his opportunity. Lock up on the left-hand side of Aka's car. Coming through turns 10 and 11. Now to back the left-hander of turn 12 into the first chicane. And yet again, tyre smoke fills the air, and we'll be seeing plenty of that still over the course of the race. And that's George ducking into the pits quite early. Now that is for tyres. He's gone for a slightly harder tyre compound, and that was a lightning quick pit stop for George. Chicken has also just pitted. So has Kunga, who's just gone out ahead. And Pagadala emerges. Oh my goodness, Kunga, even the next day, he remembers the stewards and their kindness, and he thinks, oh, I'll have to pay them yet another visit. A 3-second time penalty for Kunga. But this leaves us then with Pagadala in the lead, with Aka 1.8 seconds behind, and then George 18 seconds after that pit stop. And the restart seems a little more clean, and we do have way more drivers on than before. So I am fairly happy. Oh my goodness, and there's Mormons also with a penalty, 3-second time penalty, as Pagadala and Sean both head into the pits. Isn't a quick stop for Pagadala. Yes, it is a relatively quick one. So does he emerge ahead of George? Is George now coming around the final couple corners, turn 18, then turn 19. Anthony knows down the main pit straight. Pagadala's just exiting. How close is it going to be? And that was George flying past Pagadala on the exit of the pit lane. So that's George then up into P2 with a beautiful undercut. And Aka stays out 16 seconds ahead. That gap is going to close rapidly since George is on fresher tyres, but also Aka still needs to pit as well. So in terms of position changes, Aka 7 positions up from where he started. Chicken losing out 3 positions. One of the biggest losers then positions up in P5. So Aka then the big winner here. And everyone but Blitz, Bilya and Aka have stopped. There's Aka coming into the pits now. And we're on board with George now. So he'll take the race lead from Aka. Where will Aka emerge? As Pagadala follows not far behind. This is now Aka coming out of the pit lane. There's George. There's Pagadala. Where's Chicken? There's Chicken. Just there. And he barely makes it ahead, but it's Chicken with a little more momentum, a little more top end speed. Comes by to take P3. Just snatching it away from Aka. See Chicken still pushing those tyres over the limit, 0.5 seconds ahead, and he is locking up all the way. It's Blitz and Bilya in P6 and P7, also quite close to each other, 0.7 seconds. Potentially a close battle there. But this is from Bilya's perspective in that golden white car. Into turns 10 and 11, massive lockup from Blitz ahead. That means his tyres are going to be overheated coming through turn 12, that left-hander of Tabak. We're almost halfway through the race. 0.3 seconds between the two now for P6. Into the final section. Lockup from Blitz once again. And Blitz ducks into the pits rather than hold up or fight Bilya. I'm sure both of them are relieved at the outcome of that little incident there. So then about halfway into the race, George in P1, Pagadala P2, Chicken P3. Let's just have a look at, once again, just some of the statistics. Bilya hasn't put in a pit stop. The top 5 are in hards, the bottom 4 are in mediums, and we have 3 second time penalties for Kunga and Mormons. And there's a caution in sector 2. Not sure who that is, but the closest gap at the moment is Aka on Hollow Chicken, 1.7 seconds behind the pole starter of the race. Oh my goodness, and I think that was Mormons hitting the wall on the exit of turn 18. Kunga and Blitz swapping positions now fairly rapidly. So Blitz is 1.5 seconds off Kunga in P7. Then the other closest gap is actually going to be Hollow Chicken. Oh my goodness! Is that Chicken? Chicken spun out! That was Chicken facing the wrong way. He's just lost the final podium position to Aka. Chicken's been pushing those tyres so hard, and they've maybe just given out. Maybe he's pushed them over the limit a little too much through there. On the exit of turn 4 Casino. Doesn't seem as though there's too much damage to his car. So if he can continue to press on, he might catch Aka, but we've seen how quick Aka can be. All I know is he's probably not catching Pagadala or George at this pace, considering their pace. You can see just how much tyre smoke they need to drive through, coming through the final section. And Pagadala sets a new fastest lap of 1:12.071, so Pagadala looking to close the gap to George ahead. So here's Pagadala from his perspective, and just see George ahead, 1.8 seconds. Pagadala is also pushing his tyres as much as he can. Small lockups going through that right-hander of turn 8 Portier, then turn 9 into the tunnel. Out turn 10 and 11. Now we saw Pagadala's attempt at no, sorry, that was back pole, and he just collided with that protruding barrier at turn 10. Of course, these guys are going to need to watch out for that. Does Pagadala have DRS though, is my question. Yes, he does. He was just within a second at turn 17, which is the DRS detection zone. And Pagadala, even faster lap time with that DRS, 111.7. So he's got that DRS. He's going to be closing that gap to George now. Pagadala looking for his second race win. This restart has gone fairly well for him, considering that he had to retire last race within about half a lap, I think. So yeah, I think it's gone very well for him. Whoa, you can just see how much he's been locking up that was it left and right? Sorry, just trying to get, yes, it's his left front that he's been knocking up. You can literally see how stationary that was. Hang on, did they just swap, Pagadala and George? What just happened? I swear George was ahead by a certain amount, and he just ghosted. So now it's Pagadala in the race lead. George loses it to Pagadala. I'm not sure how that happened at all. He must have just had a really horrible exit, and we just did not catch it through the tunnel. We went into the tunnel, Pagadala was behind. Come out the tunnel, Pagadala's ahead. So I don't know what happened there, but it's going to be a battle between Pagadala and George, potentially. Still 0.3 seconds between the two. We've seen George's clean driving, yet quick driving. So he's going to keep that pressure on Pagadala all the way, and Pagadala continues to lock up his tyres, losing grip every time he does so, and that's kind of a compound effect. Compound interest effect, I should say, in terms of it building up and building up over the course of a lap. There's maybe a small break in the straights, but considering this is one of those two straights, you're still using those tyres around the long right-hander. Oh, and he's just playing with the track limits there, toying with them, trying to see where the actual limit is. So George continues to push hard. He's lost time to Pagadala ahead. That is going to be a car facing the wrong way. Oh my goodness, 4 cars in the last sector, all scattered across the track. What has happened there? It's a little too late, unfortunately, but that was very odd. We had 4 cars, and Kunga disqualified from session for parking in a dangerous location. Oh my goodness, and that's Pagadala into the wall. So Pagadala taking some damage. Aka cruises by, Chicken cruises by. Sean is still very far back. So this is Sean, I think he is racing, but it is not going to be for that lap. Oh my goodness. So Pagadala spun out and hit the wall. How much damage he has taken from that, I do not know. We shall have to see whether he peels into the pits soon. That means George takes the race lead. Aka P2, Chicken P3. Wow. That just happened. So a little upset. 2/3 into the race lap, 19 of 27 now. We only have 8 laps more to go, and it has been a long race, so thank you for bearing with us if you are still watching. And oh my goodness, there seem to be more cars somewhere, and that's Blitz on the final corner. Laraskas and Anthony knows there's one of the race leaders coming past now. That is very unfortunate. That was Sean just moving by as well. And Billiers parked it on the exit of turn 4, as we've seen so many do already, then into turn 5, Mirabeau. And wow, things have just shaken up a plenty here at Monte Carlo. So it's 1 minute 12, 1 minute 13 for Bilya and Sean. Blitz is 7 seconds off of Bilya, Mormon's 32 seconds, and then it's going to be Pagadala 1.8 seconds off of Chicken. It'll be quite entertaining to see these two battle, I think. Pagadala and Chicken both seem to have a tendency to push their tyres over the limit. So 1.3 seconds, Pagadala is closing that gap, but Chicken is also closing the gap to Acker ahead. Meanwhile, George just continues to pull out a lead, 6 seconds now. Woo! And look at that tyre smoke. Chicken abusing those tyres as much as he can. There is only 7 laps left, and I'm not sure how much tyre life is left in these things. But Pagadala's managed to close that gap from about 2.5 seconds down to 1.1. Chicken has also managed to close the gap to Acker to about 1.5 seconds now. And Pagadala is within a second now of Chicken ahead. Half a second, he's going to have DRS on the straight. He's right on his bumper, coming out of the final corner. A little less exit speed than Chicken ahead, but he'll have more top end speed. Pagadala with a new fast lap, 111.5, and that keeps tumbling as he hits that DRS. So Pagadala, 0.3 seconds. Look at how quick the Monacan street, the houses are passing by. Mormons with a 10-second penalty and another 3-second penalty, so he's got 13 seconds worth of penalties. Oh, and they almost go round. Pagadala touching Chicken's rear. That has not gone well for either of them. They might have sustained a little bit of damage from that, but not too much. You know, Chicken's closed the gap to Acker despite that touch to 0.9 seconds, so he'll also have DRS. Pagadala getting out of shape on the exit of turn 11. These three are going to be battling for P2, P3, and no one wants to be P4. So it is the podium positions these guys are fighting for, and you can see how much tyre smoke Pagadala has to deal with. Through the final corner, Pagadala seems very steady. Oh my goodness, and both drivers hit the wall. Both drivers hitting that pit lane wall on the exit as they lay down the throttle. A little too much oomph, and they do end up maybe damaging their front wing slightly. The funny thing is, both of them did it. It's not just one. But they are far ahead of Sean. Oh, huge lockup from Chicken. That's the second time we've seen him do something in that section of the track. They are pushing hard. Pagadala's looking for a gap. We've seen his impatience lose him potentially the race lead. So if he can just keep a cool head and just take this nice and calm, he might get that position. Oh, all sketchy coming through the Novell chicane. They are pushing each other to the limit. Chicken trying to close that gap to Acker ahead. Acker, just his consistency, has managed to keep him ahead of these two despite their faster pace. Pagadala with the DRS, you can hear it, half a second. Is this a move into turn 1? He's a little far back for it, but he has closed that gap once again. Seconds between these two. Close this gap, slightly wider line from Pagadala. It is just better seeing this from the driver's POV. Oh, massive send down the inside, and he collides. And that's Chicken into the wall. Oh my goodness, that was ugly. A huge dive bomb from Paga down the inside of Chicken, and he just slams into the side of him. Under braking as well. Now I do understand that is probably going to be due to the rear maybe slipping out, as we've seen with Chicken a couple times already through Mirabu. We've seen that rear end slide around a little bit as he's braking. So maybe a similar thing, but maybe Pagadala just wasn't as much on the limits, and so he, when he turned, he actually had some grip on the front and ended up hitting the side of Chicken. This is now between Bilya and Blitz, P6 and P7. Bilya in that gold and white car. Is there damage to them? No, there isn't. 0.3 seconds before between the two, apologies, as they come through the tunnel. Careful now, Bilya, careful. Into the braking zone. There's a tap from behind. They both skip the chicane. Oh, sorry, Blitz does. Bilya backs out. Through the final chicane, 3 laps remaining. Almost at the end of a very long and torturous race for many of our drivers, I'm sure, and a very interesting race for me to try and commentate on, because I've got no idea what's happening. Half a second, and that's Blitz into the wall on the exit of turn 19. Anthony knows, and Blitz down to P7. I think that was also Bilya hitting the wall on the exit of turn 1. Well, Blitz has managed to get going once again. The damage doesn't seem to be too severe, but the closest gap then is going to be between Pagadala and Aka, 2.8 seconds. I don't think Pagadala will be closing that gap in time for the race end. George has been pulling out an 8-second lead on Aka. He's just been staying nice and consistent. Oh, and look at all that tyre smoke coming off the car ahead. Pagadala down to 2.4 seconds, 2.1 seconds. But yes, that is going to be very tricky to catch up unless Aka makes a mistake. So, oh my goodness! Oh, almost thought that was Aka. If it was, then that would have been an upset, but I believe that's Blitz down at P7. Oh, and actually Pagadala now down to 1.8 seconds, coming to the penultimate lap of the race. 1.5 seconds, he is closing that gap. Is it potentially going to be the tyre performance, tyre life, tyre pressures, tyre temperatures? Chicken hits the pit now in P4. He'll come out ahead of Sean, so there's no reason to be concerned for him there. George, meanwhile, just staying that 8.8 seconds ahead of Aka in P1. But Pagadala's just suddenly managed to close the gap to Aka to about a second now. He'll have the DRS into the first corner on the final lap, potentially, if we can keep it close. And this then is where Pagadala's impatience might actually have a place in the race, where he might actually pay off to get that move done as soon as he can. But will he? That's the question.
Race control, collision with car 75, under investigation.
Under investigation, car 75, or a collision with car 75. But this is Pagadala, 0.7 seconds. We'll have a look at who car 75 is in a second. Pagadala, 0.4 seconds. He is close to the back of Aka. Meanwhile, it is the final lap of the race. We are coming to a conclusion. It's been almost 2 hours of racing, both qualifying and racing. It's Pagadala, 0.4 seconds, 0.3 seconds. Putting Aka under pressure. A little tap from behind to remind him he's still there. George heading through the tunnel. We'll just keep an eye on him so that when he does go across the finish line, we can welcome him in the usual fashion. Pagadala, 0.2 seconds. Does he make a move under braking into the chicane? Yes, he does. Goes wide into the chicane. Turns 10 and 11. And he's done it! And that was Pagadala for P2, but he lost it due to Aka moving ahead. Meanwhile, George comes around the final corner, and he has finally managed to do it. It is a race win for George. The checkered flag waves at Monte Carlo, and George wins round 2 of the Cinque F1 Esports Championship. Meanwhile, for P2, it is Acker crossing the finish line first, and then Pagadala, despite that overtake by Pagadala on the chicane of turns 10 and 11. I think Acker will need to give that position back, so essentially Pagadala then has taken P2 if the stewards were watching that, if the stewards were aware of that, because Pagadala did get the move done. He was to the chicane first, hit turn 11, and Acker had just gone straight on. So ultimately then Acker with an unfair advantage. But who knows, it might have just been my perspective, but I suspect that Pagadala has taken P2 and Acker swaps back down to P3. But it is finally time for George to take his first race win. He was strong in qualifying, having a nice little battle with Chicken for pole position, and then finally solidifying that into a race win.
Race control 5-second penalty on car 75, collision with car 25.
Car 75 receiving a penalty. We shall do that after the podium celebrations. A crazy race indeed. A restart and half the grid gone by the time that red flag dropped. George finally took his first race win. Acker and Pagadala once again on the podium despite a quick race from Chicken. He had good pace, but unfortunately he's lost out. But he has taken the fastest lap though with a 1:10.6, so he won't be going home without any points at least. Sean and Bilya, a little interesting race there, and Kunga just could not stay away from the stewards, but I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to round 3 at Las Vegas. I believe we'll be having a interview with our top 3 finishers, but that is if they are still willing to. It has been a very long evening for them and for me, so we'll see whether they are still down for it. So don't leave yet. I'll let you guys know when, as soon as possible, whether it will be doing it. And I believe it is still going on, and unfortunately I do not have a screen for that yet. And yes, it seems as though our interview will continue. Now the question is, where do we go? This is the first time we are doing interviews, so please do forgive us for maybe the I'm not sure how to call it. Maybe the unorganised nature. Apologies that that's still on there.
Hello.
Good evening, George. How are you doing, sir?
I am good now.
Oh
I
man,
wasn't good before the restart.
no, you seemed to have an absolutely awesome battle with Chicken for the for pole position. Really, it was quite entertaining to watch. How did that feel battling with George? Sorry,
Uh,
with Chicken right at the start.
yeah, I mean, at the start it was good. It was so tricky to get past. I was on course for pole, but I messed my lap up after the hairpin.
Mm, mm.
Because I hit the wall and I was at 3 tenths up, and all of a sudden it went down to half a tenth.
Yeah,
So yeah, kind of sucked. But the first race start was very bad. I'm not
yeah.
gonna lie. Um, but yeah, the second race was all good. We had a great fight, clean fight. Unfortunately, the lockups were very tricky to
Mm,
avoid, and it forced some
mm.
contact. So yeah,
But
but
you
overall it was
seemed
a
very
good fight.
consistent though in terms of managing your tyres, making sure you're not locking up too much. You were definitely the more conservative driver, yet you still had the pace. So yeah, I think you were definitely the driver who deserved it most today.
Ah, thank you, thank you. I tried not to push it too hard. I didn't want to make like a huge mistake. I clipped the curb at one point and Arian just got past me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's only small mistakes that can cost you the race, but you managed to minimise those today. So a job well done, sir.
Thank you very, very much.
I believe we have, is it P2 or P3 as well in the voice chat? Not
It
sure.
is
Yep.
P2 because Arian got a 5 second penalty.
P2, so it's sorry, 1 second. But anyway, yeah, P2 and P3.
Alex,
What a battle right at the end. How do you find that?
Well, it was, let's say, pretty hard.
Mhm.
Really difficult to pass because obviously we're in Monaco.
Mm.
The track is really tight. I did notice I made an error, so I did give back the position to Aryan.
Mhm.
But then at the last corner, I went for the move, and fortunately, I got it, even though it wasn't the cleanest of overtakes.
Mm. Mm.
But yes, it was a really good race, especially at the start. Considering that I started P8, getting to P2 was pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had fun, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's your second podium of the season already. 2 races, 2 podiums. You seem to be set for a pretty good position finish at the end of the season, don't you think?
Yes, I'm definitely hope I'm going to get P1 someday.
Mhm.
But for now, I'm really happy with with how I've been driving, and yeah,
Yeah, just that consistency will definitely get you a long way in any championship and especially F1, I believe.
yes. I am sort of sad about the first race that they decided to restart it
Mm, mm.
because also there I started P8 and it was pretty hard getting to P1, especially at the start. But yes, in the end, I'm really happy of my consistency. But I'll start trying to minimize my errors and start going faster.
Yeah, yeah, and you definitely surprised with the pace in the second half of the race. It did seem to be some kind of disparity between you and Pagadala and George, but you managed to maintain that right to the end of the race. So also great job on the pace and the time management, sir.
Thank you.
So I believe that concludes our second round then of the F1 Esports Championship. Next round will be Las Vegas. However, I won't be there, so I'll join you for round 5 at Jeddah. And we'll see you there. Again, 10 p.m. Is it 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. IST? I'm confused.
10.
10 p.m.
It's 10
IST.
p.m. IST.
Okay, so we'll see you all then. Good night.
Also, in case Alex, you don't know, you're getting around 12 points from the first race. So yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely got the most points this week for this race. You got 30 points.
Okay, thank you.
Championship
So
leader.
yeah, good job.
Yes, thank
Excellent.
you.
Yeah, indeed.
Awesome.
I'll be skipping the next 2 races, so yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay, awesome.
even the playing field.
Yeah, it's gonna give me a chance to catch up.
Oh boy, I can't wait to see the battles you guys have in the future.
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
have to give
Vegas.
maximum effort.
It's going to be brilliant.
You're missing Vegas only or Jeddah
Yeah,
as well?
only
Also
Vegas.
Jeddah.
I'll be joining you guys again for Jeddah.
Alright,
So-
awesome. Alex, you?
Vegas and Jeddah, my 2 favorite
Oh, Vegas
tracks,
and
so,
Jeddah. Okay.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate.
I gotta win Jeddah. I gotta win Jeddah. I don't. Vegas is very difficult with the DRs, but I have to win Jeddah.
Oh well, it's going to be an interesting title battle potentially between the two of you. Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. Let's go.
Cool, and we
Yeah.
shall see you all then next week. I won't see you all, but I'll see you in 2